Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm your host, Richard Dugan, and I thank you so much for joining us on the radio broadcast at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on a Sunday and Monday mornings at 1 a.m. The broadcast podcasts are available on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, as well as richarddugan.com, the homepage, as well as the radio shows page. And we encourage you, if you can, to support us financially to keep the programs moving forward and take care of all of the ancillary things through PayPal and Patreon accounts. They are for your security as well as ours. We hope that you will do your part and do what you can if you feel led to do so. We'll even take energetic support as well. And we also encourage you to go to our guest's website. We'll be giving you that during the interview so that you can continue your evolutionary process. We also encourage you to spend time in meditation, in prayer, in just quiet time during 2020, the year of perfect vision, and the 2020s, the decade of perfect vision. And we hope that you will do that. Listen to that still small voice, that divine self, your higher self, and follow the promptings. And find that still, small, quiet, peaceful place where you can just relax and get a hold of what's really important in your life. We encourage you to do that, and we also encourage you to stay tuned to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan. Stay tuned. Today we are going to talk about something that I've never experienced before in my life. I have no clue as to what this woman's talking about because I have never experienced, well, maybe a little anxiety here and there. It's been a little frightening the last 6, 7, 8, 9 months or years or decades. All I know is we all go through it, and we're all going through it, as they say, together. We're all connected, whether you like it or not. And Elke, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. My guest is Elke, and it's Scholz. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm super thrilled to be here.
Anxiety warrior. Do we get to wear the metal bracelets and carry the sword and the shield and wear the, well, for guys it'd be a short skirt, but needless to say, I guess that's a Roman attire. The anxiety warrior. I know that we've had Walsh who wrote the Peaceful Warrior. I think that was him. And we've had all kinds of different warriors. What is an anxiety warrior?
An anxiety warrior is somebody, and we're not talking about battle and casualties or anything like that. We're talking about management, overcoming, empowering, that type of warrior archetype.
Okay. So it is really an acknowledgement that we do feel the way we do from time to time, happy, sad, fearful, anxious, joyous, blissful, in the zone. That's my favorite. I would say for most people, that's their favorite place to be. There's no anxiety or fear there. You know, what's interesting, though, is there's also, and this may sound kind of strange to some folks, there really isn't any joy in the zone. You're just there, and things are just happening. It's when you finish whatever it is you're doing, whether you're a sports, an athlete, or you're a carpenter, or I'm doing interviews, and I've been in the zone, and I get out the other side, and it's like, wow, that was pretty cool. And then I feel, that's when you feel really good, when you've come out the other side of that wonderful place of being in the zone. Would you say that for some folks, there is a zone that they unfortunately have been in for maybe quite some time, maybe even before the pandemic was declared, called anxiety?
And that zone that you're speaking of, so many times we take stress or anxiety or however you're feeling that, and I'm going to call it an unpleasant feeling, mm-hmm. we want to push it away. And I would invite you to bring it in. And by bringing it in, it's an opportunity and we can gain some understanding. What is it trying to tell us? What is that feeling trying to tell us? And if we can zone into it, as you say, quiet ourselves, be aware, it's going to give us clues. And hopefully today I can share some clues.
Well, I think that's a good thing. And I would say that probably this time as well as others in the past. And I know I've been through it. Oh my gosh. I've been through it more times than I want to even think about. But the anxiety, and it's probably the biggest issue that people deal with in their lives as they're growing up and everything and becoming adults and what have you. The anxiety over money.
We can have anxiety over so many things. And just to know too, when I do talks, a lot of people ask, is anxiety and stress, like, what's the difference? Are they the same? I think what we want to do is look at that unpleasant feeling, and it can show up in so many ways. It can show up as butterflies. It can show up as heart pain. It can show up as shaking. It can show up as headaches. There's so many ways that our physical body, our mental body, our emotional body feels this unpleasant feeling. And so there are ways to manage it. And when you come out of it, it can be quite a zone.
But those, we'll call them symptoms that you just described, if one does not find their way out of that particular zone, we'll go ahead and use that word, it can actually generate even more dis-ease in the body that's going to take a lot longer than just changing one's perspective or mind and what have you, right?
Right. And it can get worse. That's true. And I think our tendency is to push away the unpleasant. And if we can bring it in sooner, as soon as we feel that, and start looking at, what's that checklist? What is it that we need to do? And anxiety has 11 layers, and that can make it a bit mystifying, because we might think, okay, we got the test results, or we've moved into the new home or job, then we should be feeling better. But perhaps there's other areas that we haven't looked at. And if we can look at a few of these areas and do a checklist, we can quickly lower anxiety and manage it for sure.
Okay. It sounds like we're talking about an onion here, because there are 11 layers.
Sometimes it can be. And so one of the layers, I call it substance. It can be as simple as water. And if we're not drinking enough water, I've got some here. If we're not drinking enough water, our brain will send to the body anxiety-like symptoms. And that could, make it anxiety or whatever your stress is, it'll make it worse. And so drinking a little bit of water can certainly either take away the anxiety or lower it by quite a bit. And one of the clues is, if you're waking up in the morning with anxiety right away, most of the time it's because you're dehydrated, because you've been sweating all night.
Okay. Good.
So that doesn't have to be such a big thing or so complicated. And that would be the first layer for sure, is look at what you put into your body.
Tell me about, let's talk about the scale of anxiety. Certainly, we all experience it for lots of different reasons. We could just be on the freeway and all of a sudden we just are aware someone's going to do something up here. I just have this feeling, and all of a sudden you start to back off, and they do it, and there's a little tension there. There's a little anxiety, but it goes away because that condition is no longer there.
Right.
All the way up to situations, let's just say one's finances. They were laid off because of the pandemic, and unemployment is running out, and on, and the list goes on, and that is ongoing anxiety. I have heard it said, correct me if I'm wrong, that we may be dealing with this issue of anxiety in our population for years to come. It's not something that's you're going to snap your fingers, it's going to go away. What about this? Right. Is that a fair assessment of the two ends of the scale?
Yes and no. And it's interesting when you mention that. Do you like those answers?
I you know what? When I get those from a guest, it's like, I love the clarity here. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Well, what I like about what you said about the scale, and I use a 0 to 10 scale. Okay. So 0 is you're calm, chill, no body disturbance. 10 is I can't put a thought together. My brain is short circuiting, or maybe it's just blank. Sometimes our anxiety, where there's nothing up there happening, it can be that acute and stand in the way. And what's so important is to understand our scale. And what you said, it fits in with that layer. So if I'm dehydrated, that may move up my scale, but I can also lower that scale. And like you said, financial, if that's hovering, then that is going to contribute to that scale rising up. And one of the things that we need to look at, and it's come up so many times, is what's on our plate. And, we've got isolation and all these things going on in the world. And if there's finances on top of that, and perhaps there's diet issues for you, well, you could be running at a 7, 8, 9, 10 regularly. However, there's a lot of things we can do that we have control of, that we can lower that scale and make better choices around the finances, whatever's coming on our plate, be more resilient as well.
I have a sort of a multi-layered question here. I'm kind of playing the same game you are with yes and no. Okay.
That's great. I love it.
We're talking about anxiety. You mentioned stress. There's also fear. What are the differences, the similarities, and or the connection between those three in particular?
Absolutely. And I can even add to that.
I bet you can.
So fear, I live up in Muskoka. It's a couple of hours north of Toronto. So I've got 6 acres and lots of woods behind me. And I've been chased by a skunk for no reason. And that's fear. The skunk was growling, thumping, and chasing me. So when we're getting chased by an animal, and that could have been a bear or something else, that's fear. We need fear for survival. Otherwise, we would die as humans. So we need fear, and that is real. Now, anxiety, a lot of times, is anticipatory. So that would be me being anxious or nervous about going on that same trail. And I was for the first little while, because I thought, oh no, that skunk, why did it come out of the woods and chase me? And so it's anticipatory. So I'm anticipating being chased. And that is a clue as well about anxiety. And that's why it's an opportunity, because it's tapping us on the shoulder and saying, hey, we've got to pay attention to something. And we can discover what that something is. And then we have worry, which is, it comes from the English word rygon, which means to strangle. And worry thoughts are looping thoughts, and they can even become obsessive. And that creates another stress and anxiety. So worry is, and there's different exercises around that. And all these cause stress. Mm-hmm. So does the stress cause anxiety, or does anxiety cause stress? You know what? I'm not sure it really matters. And I think it's that we need to really know what's going on with our bodies. We really need to know ourselves. And that's why these strategies, some of them may work for you, and something else may work better. And it's really important to understand your body. And I think that's what you do here.
So we're kind of talking chicken and the egg here kind of deal.
Sometimes with the stress and the anxiety, absolutely.
Yeah. They both exist, so just deal with it kind of thing.
Well, yeah. And how do we deal with it? Like right now, I know, I have a happy stress because I love sharing this work and I love doing this work. And so it's like, yeah, I'm not a zero, and I don't want to be, because I'm excited and passionate. And I think it sounds like that for you too. And so it's like, okay, how do we turn it around? How do we make this into an opportunity?
It's very interesting to discuss this particular subject, maybe at this time, but it would be appropriate regardless. I've lived in Southern California, or Central California, for 14 years. Before that, I lived in Phoenix, Arizona. I was there for 46 years.
Nice.
And couldn't wait to get out of there because of the heat, you know. And after I was here for a few years, I thought, wait a minute, I think I just jumped from the frying pan into the fire, almost literally, with the one wildfire after another.
Right.
And I remember this goes to a point of maybe one of the techniques that you talk about. The first fire I saw in 2006, it was June. I was out on the porch of our home looking to the north, and there was this tiny little itty bitty puff of smoke way off in the distance. I did not know how far, had no points of reference. I freaked out. I go, oh my God, there's a fire. Da, 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 da. And as subsequent fires came along, the next year, it was in the summer, one that lasted a month. And on one Sunday evening, we're looking out the same window, the same porch, and tiny little flecks of light in the evening. You could see the fire was way off in the distance. 1 week later, we went from a balcony view to almost a front row seat. It had come that far. But the one thing that I have learned in the 14 years living here, and it has really helped. Number one is certainly being prepared, is creating the network, having sufficient information. And that seems to me to be at least a helper to subside the anxiety or the fear. When you have information and you have something to do, that you're not expending that energy being fearful, just sitting there and marinating in it. You're taking that energy now and you're actually being productive and doing something with it. And that's a whole lot more healthy. Do you think that one of the keys is that information can actually help in these kinds of situations?
Absolutely. And I write about that in the book is when you can understand anxiety, if you understand where it comes from, if you can understand what it is, absolutely. I've had people after a talk just go, wow, all this just lowered my anxiety by 3 or 4 points, like right away, because they understood it. See, I have a private practice and people come in and they think something's wrong with them. And no, nothing is wrong with them. If you're not sleeping, if you've got all these things on your plate, yeah, that's going to create anxiety for me too. So, and then they sit there and they go, oh, so nothing's wrong with me. No, nothing is wrong with you. And you're right, this understanding. And when we have tools and then we can do something about it, we can move through it and not have to suffer in it because we don't know what to do, or we think something's wrong with us. And, so many times little children think something is wrong. They think something is wrong. And there isn't something wrong. They're all so anxious or they're worried. And when they understand, it's very quick for them. They're like, yay, yippee, free, I'm free.
Yeah.
And away they go.
And they have the capacity. This is quite an incredible aspect of being a child. The great capacity to fall down and hurt themselves. And within seconds, if not a minute or two, they're up running around playing again because they feel it, they experience it, let it go and move on. But
right.
somehow,
and you've just named something, is presence. And that's actually a strategy, is being so present. And I think anxiety, as much as it can tap us on the shoulder and say, hey, let's pay attention to something, as soon as we do, pretty much most of the time, whoosh, it's gone. And because we've acknowledged it and we've done something about it and we're present. Because right now we're doing a show. Everything is perfect right now. We're being present. And that's what is so lovely about children is, sure, they get up and they go, wow, the sun's shining. Hey, let's go play. Or there's a mud puddle. Yay, let's go jump in it. They're so present. And I think we can learn from that for sure as a strategy to manage our own anxiety.
I'd even have to say that when I was with my brother and neighbors building forts in our backyard, and we're talking about wood forts with nails and hammers, and we'd walk around barefoot. And we'd step on a nail from time to time. and it would last for a couple of minutes, pull the nail out and, do what you need to do. And then we would move on to continue building the fort, hoping we didn't get tetanus or something,
Right.
because the fort was the focus of our attention. Mindfulness. That seems to be a real big buzzword these days, being mindful. But you're saying the same thing, though, aren't you?
Yep.
Mindfulness is being present in this present moment.
Absolutely. And Richard, one of the things two words, if people can get two words out of what we're doing today, is awareness, which is mindfulness, and practice. And our bodies are our barometers. They're not going to lie to us. And I would encourage you to trust your body as much as you can. Your body's going to let you know. And that's what it's doing with anxiety. So if you can bring it in and say, thank you, body, for giving me anxiety, because you're trying to tell me something. That's being mindful and present. And as soon as we do that, right away, what I've noticed is the anxiety already drops because we've acknowledged it. We're listening. And then we can start going through the checklist and say, okay, what's going on in my life? What do I need to attend to? And yeah, so mindfulness is, it's key. And I think no matter what is happening in our world, is we have that choice to be aware and mindful.
How and why is the subject of anxiety important enough to you that you would devote so much of your life's purpose to this?
Well, that's a big question, Richard. I have suffered from anxiety my whole life. As a child, I had migraines and flu symptoms before big projects and tests. I was the kid in the back of the classroom. If someone else got in trouble, I'd be quietly crying by myself, even though it wasn't me. As a teenager, I stuttered, and I thought it was because I didn't understand the English language. And I do have a very mild dyslexia. And as an early adult, I thought really something was wrong with me, and I was hiding this big secret, and it was torture for me. I write about a few stories in the book that are very close and vulnerable. And then as an adult, and still I didn't understand that that's something that I suffered from. And when I finally had a name for it, it gave me something to grasp onto. And fast forward to going back to school, becoming a registered psychotherapist. I have a master's. I didn't think I could ever do university. Again, it was because of my anxiety. I didn't have that support. And so for me, my life's passion is, if I can make somebody's life easier and enrich someone's life, that means everything to me. And yeah, I do that with my clients, and I love to speak publicly. I never thought I ever would do that in my whole life, though I'm so passionate about this. And I think it's important we talk about it. The more we understand it and talk about it, I think we can manage it and not feel so anxious, especially in the world around us and what we're hearing and experiencing. So yeah, I'm so so passionate about it. And the other cool thing is, I really believe that we can thrive and we deserve to thrive. And that's what my life is. I feel like I'm living proof of my own experiment.
Well, let me just ask you to describe some of the steps that you would have people go through to begin the process of relieving anxiety.
Do you mean like the checklist?
Yes.
Yeah. So the first checklist is, what have I put in my system? What have I actually put into my body? And is that caffeine, sugar, alcohol, cigarettes? All those things deplete my body of water. And am I dehydrated? Have I been sweating? And I need to replenish my body with water. So that would be the first thing. Then looking at, has it affected my sleep? is the next checklist. Am I doing enough exercise? Am I getting enough fresh air, getting those endorphins going? That definitely is on the checklist. And then the next thing for sure is what is on my plate right now. And you mentioned finances before. You've mentioned fires. You've mentioned, isolation and the things that are happening in the world. What's on my plate? What is it that I have to address? So that checklist keeps moving down, and sometimes, if you're waiting for a test result, for whether it's a health test result or a job or whatever, that alone can stop us from sleeping and create anxiety. However, we also know that's over in a few days or maybe a week. And we can tolerate that. We can pull up our sleeves and say, okay, maybe I'm just going to be a little restless for a few days. So that's part of that checklist.
Well, I'll tell you, the process that we all need to learn you're talking about here, and our guest here on the program today is helping us to become, as she refers to them, anxiety warriors. Elke Scholz, is that correct? Scholz?
Yeah, Elke. Yeah.
Elke Scholz is our guest here on the program. Want to let you know that that's the website you're going to go to, elkescholz.com. That's ELKESCHOLT. I'm sorry, SCHOLZ.com. Now, again, that's ELKESCHOLZ.com. And again, it's the anxiety warrior. And it's one of those areas in our lives that is not, it just doesn't seem like it's going to go away. Sometimes, as you said, you break out into a cold sweat and you have all of these other stomach issues and digestive problems and on and on and on. And you just ask yourself, when is this going to end? And it seems like we sometimes make the same choices over and over again and wind up in the same place, maybe every 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 years and or more. And it's like, why I can't seem to break this cycle. What's going on? What about that aspect of living our lives and then repeating? And it's like, I thought I learned that lesson, and yet here I am again in the exact same spot.
I'm not sure if it is. And I think if it's pertaining to anxiety, I think it's part of I know it's part of our humanness, our human spectrum. It's who we are. We're not this unfeeling amoeba, and we're not a rock or a tree. We're human beings with feelings, and we just are. And everybody's going to be different in every situation. And life, what I've noticed, and I don't know for you, Richard, but it doesn't seem to go just smooth. It's these waves of we're going merrily along, and somebody said, if you were feeling joy, we can rest. That's our rest time. It's we've done our work, so we can enjoy that. And when we're feeling unpleasant, that's when we have some work to do, and we need to explore what those clues are. And my mentor, a good mentor of mine, he welcomes the unpleasant. I'm not there yet, and I don't welcome it. However, what I have learned to say, okay, I bring it in, and the difference in my life is, and what you'll notice too is those unpleasant sensations are much shorter. And instead of being overcome with whether it's anxiety or anger or worry or grief, instead of that being hours and days and weeks, it becomes moments. And when we understand that, okay, I'm just having this moment right now, and it is going to pass, and I'm going to figure it out. Yeah. It's different. It changes, especially, it changes, and it becomes manageable. So I don't expect, and I do mention this in the book, is I don't expect to have an anxiety-free life, though I do expect to thrive. And I think life is a gift, and we deserve to thrive.
Absolutely. That's what we are striving for. We want to move from survival, as I say, to thrival. I used to think I
Right.
created that
Nice.
word, and then I looked it up and it was in the dictionary. And that's okay.
Thrival.
Thrival is actually in the dictionary.
Nice word.
Um, there are times when we are in the middle of something, okay? And suddenly we may get some new information. And it changes, immediately changes our attitude. There's a line in a song I love a lot, and the line goes, changes somehow frighten me. Still, I have to smile. It turns me on to think of growing old. Well, as a kid growing up, and even as a teenager, I kind of thought that too, although I didn't think too much about change. And then some years after that, in my early adulthood, I was asked to read a book entitled Who Moved the Cheese? Mandatory reading by the boss. So I read it and I took it back and I gave it back to him. And I said, I don't have a problem with people moving the cheese. Just tell me where you moved it to. That's all I want to know. And using that analogy, it's like, okay, I've been through this scenario as I was describing before, time and time and time again. It's like, I'm sick and tired of this. How do I get out of this? And wondering, are these sometimes these patterns that are so ingrained that it's next to impossible, and that we just better expect that these will happen? Or are there techniques that you can give people to help them to recognize that, you've been here before, not just specifically anxiety, but the cause of the anxiety, or what we're allowing to cause the anxiety, so that we can shift to a different direction and get out of that cycle, because we're unhappy in it at the present moment, and we've felt it before over and over again, and it's just very frustrating.
I think I'm hearing you, and I wonder. So my wonder is that underneath that, is there a belief system? Is there a belief that is underlying getting into this place that feels like it's a pattern, like we're not getting out of something? And I'd want to explore that and invite you to explore it more as to, is it something that you've learned? Did someone tell you, life is difficult? Did someone tell you you weren't worthy or not good enough? Did someone tell you you had to work hard for the things you love? I would wonder if there is that underlying and belief. And that would take a little bit of digging. Am I on the right path? Is that what you're looking for?
I think I think it's those messages that we've gotten, and even the patterns we may have even started as a young person. We didn't even realize what we were setting ourselves up for.
Well, and not to be critical of parents or teachers or neighbors or any elder that we have in our life, is our humanness. We're programmed to absorb everything without filters from about 6 and under. And there's a reason for that. So we absorb these belief systems because we want to belong to the tribe and we want to fit in. And what happens is we have learned these without filters. And, we can forgive ourselves because we were just little children, and also perhaps forgive our families and our culture. And, we also have the media. We're always 3 purchases away from happiness. We're only going to be happy if we get something or have something else. I mean, we're getting that all the time. And if we can sit back and come back to your mindfulness and your awareness and explore back, where are we getting these ideas from? Where are we getting the patterns from? We weren't born with them. And as a psychotherapist, I also call myself a bit of a detective. So can I invite you to be a detective, to explore, where did this come from? Where did it begin? Where did the pattern begin? And that's when we get the clues of how to get out.
Well, that's something maybe we'll pursue off air. It's really perplexing because I've been living my life. I'm 60 now, thinking that okay, I've arrived, so to speak, and I should have it all together. And I turn around and why is this here again? What is the point? What is the lesson that I'm supposed? Because I didn't get it the first time, and apparently I didn't get it the second time, and I swore I wouldn't do it a third time, and yet here I am again. And
well, one of the things is, here's some key words that kind of will give us some clues. Is if we feel, and I'm going to emphasize the word, if we feel we must do something, if we feel we should or should not do something, that's very cognitive. So what I mean is that we're thinking in our heads, and usually there's a belief that's connected with that, and it goes against our bodies. I would invite you to come back to your body, because your body is your natural barometer. It's not lying to you.
yeah,
You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe anybody. The only thing you've got to believe and trust is your own body. Your body will not lie about anything, whether it's what you're wearing today, whether it's what time to have a Zoom appointment, whether it's which way to turn in traffic. Your body's not going to lie. So if we can trust our bodies more, it will help us out of these patterns. And again, if you can see the pattern, and I have a little thing that I say, it's only a pattern when it's a pattern. We only see when we can see. So how are we going to know until it's a pattern that it's a pattern? We won't know the first time. We won't know the second time. We only know the third time. Oh my gosh, we've done it. It's a pattern. So, can we be kind to ourselves and come back to our bodies, come back to that body awareness?
Yeah. We're talking with Elke Scholz, and she is talking about the anxiety warrior, something that we all could become, so to speak, if we would just allow ourselves to make that shift. And we encourage you to go to our website, elkescholz.com, ELKESCHOLZ.com, and you can get more information about the work that she's doing, about the anxious warrior. You hold, before the pandemic, did you hold workshops or seminars with groups of people who, when they would come in, everybody was happy and jovial, and then you started getting into the meat of it, and you could see the change in the room?
Actually, it's the opposite.
Opposite way. Okay. They come in anxious.
So what I do when I do a workshop or public speaking, I ask people right away the 0 to 10 scale, and I ask them to keep it to themselves. And so what I do is ask them for that number, and that they just remember the number. And at the end of the talk, we usually go through some information, the layers, and some strategies, and of course, opening it up to questions, because really people have their own questions that they want to bring forward. And by the end of the hour, I'll ask if they've lowered their anxiety, and people, it's been unanimous that it's the opposite. They've lowered it considerably. And I always see it a success. If we can lower our anxiety by half a point in an hour, that's a success. Though when someone comes up and says, they've lowered it 2, 3, 4 points, just because of some understanding and some strategies, that's a huge success.
Yeah.
So it's the opposite. They're happier when they leave.
Yeah, that's good. Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
And how long have you been dealing with this issue of anxiety and working with people?
I've been working with my own anxiety since I was born. um, and Professionally, I've over 30 years I've been working with people. It's been quite a journey. I've Yeah, it's a story, and I've had some really great teachers, which I honor very much because and there were high school teachers. I was on not a good path as a child and pretty depressed and pretty dark. And these teachers, they brought some great skills, and I didn't realize till professionally that I would think, why am I doing this in circle, and why am I facilitating this way? It's because of the two of them. They were quite incredible. I've had some great teachers.
Hmm. Well, I'll tell you, we've had a lot of wonderful teachers on this program who have shared with our listeners the ins and outs of their particular expertise. There are times when I look back at for example, my career in this business and all of the people I've met and all of the subjects that have been discussed, and think I should have my PhD, but I don't have a piece of paper showing that, and that's okay. But it's just incredible the level of not just intellect, but and information and education, but also the heart, if you will. And it's one of those things that you have to really have when you're going to help someone, especially here with anxiety. When this is something that's major, because the individual, they're going to have to deal with some very serious and in some cases extremely personal issues, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. And you mentioned something quite lovely, Richard, and that's heart. And as I was going through school, my teachers every single time said, we're so connected. We're so connected as humans, and we're much further. There's more to us than just, this body here, but there's this connection that we have energetically. And they always encouraged us and said, when you're sitting in the room with somebody, if we can slow down and really connect, that we do have this inner wisdom, that we can connect with each other on this inner wisdom with each other, and it's a co-learning inner wisdom for sure. And that connection is huge, especially, actually, always in our lives. And how can we stay connected and be aware of that too?
Elke Scholz, my guest. We're talking about the anxiety warrior, and I want to thank you so much for giving us so much time here on the program. This is, again, I think it's a very important subject. I don't want to say it's a serious subject because that may create some anxiety in and of itself, but it is. It is to a real extent because it tends to cripple us.
It
It tends
can.
to stop us from doing those things that we know that we need to do. And in spite of what information might be coming in, we may not hear it and then find the solution that will relieve us of that anxiety.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
I have three final questions for you, but before we ask those, I want to remind our listeners that you are listening to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. And this program is on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., 1 a.m. on Monday mornings. And then, of course, the podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, and a lot of other locations. Folks are reposting our interviews too. Now on YouTube, the YouTube channel, which is Richard Dugan, and Tell Me Your Story. Please check it out, and I think you'll enjoy it, as well as going to our guest's website, elkescholz.com. Will be linked to your website as well, Elke, so that people can get more information about you and the work that you're doing, and maybe connect with you and get a little support and help. First of the three,
Absolutely.
you bet. First of the three questions is, who is Elke Scholz?
Who am I? Well, I am a registered psychotherapist, author, passionate mother, and pet owner, kayaker, hiker, lover of life.
What is it that you hope to or want to achieve through the work that you're doing now?
I hope that I can make people's journey easier. My purpose is, if I can make it a bit easier and smoother, that would fulfill me. And it does give me the greatest joy when people yeah, can say that this has helped, this information has helped, then I'm thrilled out of my mind.
And finally, what is your life's purpose?
My life's purpose is that I can help others. That's my life's purpose, my legacy. I love sharing. I love doing what we're doing right now, and I would be happy doing that every day.
Hmm. Well, Elke, again,
Absolutely.
I thank you so much for sharing with us here on the program. And I thank you for listening to Tell Me Your Story and watching New Paradigms for a New World, giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, love to love.